Imagine, if you will, that you are standing in a supermarket. The lights are soft, humming white. The air is cool and carries the faint, sweet smell of polished apples and clean linoleum. Your cart has one wobbly wheel, and it makes a gentle, rhythmic click-click-click as you push it slowly down the aisle. You are not in a hurry. There is no one here but you and the quiet of the evening. You turn into the jam and preserve section. Your eyes drift over the labels. Strawberry, apricot, raspberry, and then you stop, because there on the shelf are 2 jars of the very same strawberry jam. The same brand, the same size, the same vibrant red color glowing through the glass. They are identical in every single way, and yet you cannot simply take one. You pause. Your hand hovers. You look from one jar to the other. Is the fruit in this one slightly more vibrant? Is the seal on that one more perfectly intact? You might even pick one up, feel its weight, and then put it back in favor of the other. It is a decision of absolutely no consequence, and yet, for a moment, it holds your entire attention. It becomes a tiny, silent drama played out under the fluorescent lights. Why? Why does this happen? It is a question so simple, it almost seems silly. But it is in these silly, simple moments that the deepest mysteries of our minds are often hidden. This is the first whisper of a paradox that follows every single one of us, from the moment we choose a jam to the moment we choose a life partner. It is the paradox of human choice. You see, we like to believe that our choices are our own. We picture ourselves as captains of a ship, standing at the helm, hand on the wheel, consciously and deliberately steering our course through the waters of life. We choose what to wear, what to eat, what to read, who to love. This feeling of agency, of being in control, is one of the most fundamental sensations of being alive. It is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. But what if I told you that the captain is often just a passenger? A very eloquent, very persuasive passenger who loves to tell stories, but a passenger nonetheless. What if the wheel you are holding is connected to a vast, complex, and mostly unconscious machinery below deck? An unseen architect has already drawn the blueprints for the ship long before you even step aboard. This is not a frightening thought. It is not meant to take away your power. Think of it instead as a comforting mystery, a gentle hum of complexity beneath the surface of your everyday life. The feeling of you making a choice is real, of course. The experience is vivid and undeniable. But it is the tip of an iceberg, and beneath the waterline lies a frozen mountain of influences, biases, and automatic processes that you did not consciously invite to the party. They were already there. They're always there. The architecture of your choice was being built from the moment you were born, from the culture you grew up in, the language you speak, the memories you've forgotten you have, the subtle priming of an advertisement you saw yesterday, the faint trace of a song playing in the supermarket, the very biological wiring of your brain that prioritizes certain patterns of thought. When you stood before those 2 identical jams, your conscious mind was presented with a simple binary, A or B. But your unconscious mind was processing 1,000 tiny variables. The precise angle of the light reflecting off the lid. The microscopic smudge on one label that your eye registered, but your thinking mind did not. The way your mother always reached for the jar on the right. The faint echo of a story you once read about a left-handed potter. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But our minds are absurd and wonderful places, making connections in the dark that our conscious self never gets to see. So, that moment of hesitation in the supermarket aisle, that is the moment when the captain, the you that you know, suddenly becomes aware that the ship is far more complicated than it appears. It's the moment you feel the gentle tug of currents from the deep. You are not just choosing a jam. You are navigating a world built by an unseen architect. And the most beautiful part of this paradox, the architect is you, just not the you that you are thinking of. It is a you that is older, wiser, more automated, and infinitely more complex. It is the you that beats your heart and digests your food without asking for permission. It is the you that learned to walk by falling down 1,000 times. It is the you that holds every memory, every heartache, every joy, and weaves them all together into the invisible blueprint of every single choice you will ever make. So as you lie here, settling into the comfort of your bed, allow your mind to wander back to that supermarket aisle, to the 2 jars of jam. And instead of seeing a frustrating indecision, see it for what it is, a quiet, humble, and wonderfully human moment where you brushed up against the invisible, where you felt, just for a second, the vast and silent machinery of your own soul. And you can smile at the simplicity of it. The choice of jam doesn't really matter, but the feeling of something immense and elegant working beneath the surface that is everything. Now, let us return to that supermarket aisle, but let us change it just a little. Let's expand it. Let us follow the logic of our modern world, the logic that whispers a single, seductive word: more. This time, you do not turn the corner to find 2 identical jars of strawberry jam. Oh no. This time, the entire aisle seems to stretch on forever, a canyon of condiments. The shelves are a riot of color. There is not just strawberry, but wild strawberry, organic strawberry, strawberry rhubarb, and strawberry with lavender. There is apricot, but also apricot ginger, apricot vanilla, and reduced sugar apricot. There are jams from France, from England, from a small farm in Vermont you've never heard of. There are jars shaped like barrels, jars with gingham lids, jars with handwritten labels. There are 20, 30, perhaps 50 different varieties of jam, each one promising a unique and perfect taste of sweetness. And how do you feel now? If you are like most people, that initial moment of hesitation, that tiny drama of choice between 2 jams, has now blossomed into a full-blown, silent crisis. The gentle click-click-click of your cartwheel ceases. You stand utterly still. Your eyes, which once focused easily on 2 jars, now dart and flit across an overwhelming tapestry of options. Your brain, that magnificent organ, begins to whir. It tries to compare. It tries to categorize. It weighs the merits of lavender against vanilla, of organic against artisanal. It wonders if the strawberry rhubarb would be too tart, and if the reduced sugar one would taste like disappointment. It calculates the cost per ounce. It imagines the judgment of dinner guests if you serve the wrong one. What began as a simple pleasure, choosing a jam, has become a cognitive chore. The weight of 50 possibilities feels heavier than the weight of 2. This is the tyranny of more, and it is a paradox that sits at the very heart of our modern existence. It seems so counterintuitive, doesn't it? In theory, more choice should mean more freedom. More freedom should mean more happiness. We have fought for these choices. We have built entire economies on this dazzling array of options. And yet, here we are, in the aisle of plenty, feeling a subtle sense of dread. The psychologist Barry Schwartz called this the paradox of choice, and he illustrated it with a beautiful, simple experiment, now famously known as the jam study. Imagine a quaint grocery store, much like the one in our minds. Researchers set up a tasting booth. On one day, they put out a display of 6 different jams. On another day, they put out a display of 24 different jams. They watched as shoppers drifted by. The large display, with its vibrant abundance, attracted more people. It was a spectacle, a carnival of jam. But then, something fascinating happened. When it came to actually making a purchase, the shoppers who faced the 6 jams were 10 times more likely to buy a jar than those who faced the 24. Let that sink in for a moment. 10 times more likely. The vast, glorious selection did not liberate people. It paralyzed them. With so many options, the fear of making the wrong choice became overwhelming. What if there was a better jam, a more perfect jam, just 1 jar over? What if I commit to this apricot ginger and then regret not choosing the blackberry currant? The cognitive load of evaluating 2 dozen options is exhausting. It is like trying to hold 2 dozen different, beautiful, but heavy books in your arms at once. Eventually, your arms get tired, and you put them all down, and you walk away with nothing. And this, my friend, extends far beyond jam. It is the same feeling you get when you stare at a Netflix menu with 10,000 titles, and feel there is nothing to watch. It is the same anxiety that creeps in when you try to choose a toothpaste, a pair of jeans, a mobile phone plan, or a career path. We are swimming in an ocean of choice, and sometimes it feels less like swimming and more like drowning. Why does this happen? Our brains, for all their wonder, are not infinitely powerful computers. They have limits. When presented with a few options, we can engage in what psychologists call maximizing. We can weigh the pros and cons, make a thoughtful decision, and feel satisfied. But when presented with an overwhelming number, our strategy breaks down. We shift to what is called satisficing, a wonderful term that means looking until we find something that is simply good enough. But even that is hard, because how can we know what is good enough when we haven't seen all the options? The ghost of the perfect jam haunts us from the other end of the aisle. And then there's the aftermath, the regret. If you only have 2 jams to choose from, and you pick one, it is easy to be content. But if you have 50 and you pick one, you are now left with 49 roads not taken. 49 potential sources of regret. You take your 1 jar home, and you spread it on your toast, and instead of simply tasting the sweetness, a part of your mind is wondering about the other 49. The chosen jam, no matter how delicious, is subtly diminished by the shadow of all the jams you did not choose. So, the next time you find yourself frozen in the face of too many options, be it in a store, on a screen, or in your life, I want you to remember this. It is not a failure of your character. It is not indecisiveness. It is a perfectly natural, deeply human response to a world that sometimes offers us too much of a good thing. It is your ancient brain, wired for a world of scarcity, trying to navigate a world of abundance. You can smile at it. You can acknowledge the tyranny of more, and then, gently, refuse to be tyrannized. You can close your eyes for a second in that endless aisle and remember the simple elegance of 2 jars. And then you can reach for the one that feels right without a worry for the others. Because the truth is, the perfect jam is not the one with the most exotic ingredients or the prettiest label. The perfect jam is the one that tastes sweet on your toast and allows you to enjoy your breakfast in peace without a single thought for the ghosts in the supermarket. So we have felt the weight of too many jams, and we have seen how the architecture of our choices is built in hidden workshops deep within us. But this leads us to a quiet, almost sacred question, one that has kept philosophers awake for millennia, but one that we will explore with the gentle curiosity of a child looking at a starry sky. It is the question of the ghost and the machine, the question of free will. Now, I can almost feel you shift a little. This sounds heavy, doesn't it? The kind of thing debated in dusty university halls. But let us not be afraid. We will approach it not with the harsh light of interrogation, but with the soft glow of a bedside lamp. Let us begin with the simplest of actions, something you can do right now as you lie there listening. I would like you to decide to lift your index finger. Now, don't lift it yet. Just decide to. Pay close attention to the moment of decision. That internal, silent now. Feel the intention form in your mind. I will now lift my finger, and then carry out the action. Feel the muscle engage, the slight effort, the finger rising. It felt like a clear, clean sequence, didn't it? First, the thought, I will do this. Then, the action, the doing of it. The feeling of being the author of that movement is undeniable. It is the very essence of your conscious experience. You are the thinker, the decider, the actor, the ghost willing the machine to move. But what if we could peer behind the curtain of that moment? What if we could see the precise timing of the neural events that make that finger lift? In the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet did exactly that. He wired people up to EEG machines that could measure the electrical activity in their brains. He asked them to perform a simple, spontaneous action, like flexing a wrist or just like you lifting a finger. And he asked them to note the exact moment they felt the conscious intention to act. The results were, and still are, profoundly puzzling. What Libet found was that before the person was ever aware of making a conscious decision, before that aha, I will move now moment, there was a distinct, measurable buildup of electrical activity in their brain. This activity, which he called the readiness potential, began a few hundred milliseconds before the person even felt they had decided to move. Let your mind wander around that for a moment. The brain was preparing to act before the conscious self felt it had made the choice. The machine was warming up before the ghost decided to flip the switch. This creates a delightful, dizzying little paradox. Which came first, the brain's activity or the mind's decision? If the brain is already gearing up to act before you feel you've decided, then what exactly is the role of your conscious will? Are you the author of the action, or are you more like a newspaper reporter, informed after the fact about a decision that has already been made in some hidden corporate office of the mind? This is the ghost in the machine, the feeling of a you that exists separately from your biology, a spiritual captain steering the physical ship. But the science seems to suggest that the ship is already plotting its course, and the captain is simply being told where they are going. Now, before you feel a sense of alarm, as if your very self is being taken from you, let me offer a different way to see this, a more comforting and perhaps more beautiful perspective. Think of your conscious mind not as a dictator, but as a storyteller. It sits in a warm, well-lit room, receiving memos and reports from all of the vast, dark, bustling factory of your brain and body. It doesn't control the factory's machinery. It doesn't tell the heart to beat or the neurons to fire. But it is a brilliant narrator. It takes all the chaotic, complex information it receives and weaves it into a coherent, sensible story. I am hungry, so I will make a sandwich. I am curious, so I will open this book. I decided to lift my finger. The feeling of free will, then, may be the experience of this storytelling process. It is the narrative that binds our actions together into a life that makes sense. It is the glue of identity. Without it, we would be a chaotic series of impulses and reactions. The story gives us continuity. It gives us a character. So, did you really choose to lift your finger? From one perspective, no. The biological processes were set in motion before you knew it. From another perspective, the one that matters most in your daily life, absolutely yes. The you, that is the sum total of all those processes. The you that is the story of your memories, your desires, your fears that you absolutely did choose. The conscious you may not have initiated the first spark, but it ratified it. It claimed it. It made it part of your story. The paradox is not that we have no free will. The paradox is that we are both the machine and the ghost, the river and the boat, the electrical storm in the brain and the silent witness that observes the storm. They are not two separate things fighting for control. They are two aspects of the same miraculous, unified process. You are not a ghost trapped in a machine. You are the machine, dreaming it is a ghost. And what a beautiful, poignant dream it is. So the next time you lift a finger, or choose a jam, or make any of the thousands of small decisions that weave the tapestry of your day, you can smile at the mystery. You can feel the deep, ancient machinery of your body working its magic, and you can listen to the elegant, ongoing story your mind is telling about it all. Both are true. Both are you. And in that acceptance, there's a profound kind of peace. And so we come to the storyteller. If the machinery of our brain begins its work before we are even aware of it, then who or what is this voice in our head that claims authorship? This confident, steady narrator of our lives that says, I decided, I wanted, I chose. This is where we meet one of the most fascinating characters in the entire theater of your mind. Let us call it the storyteller. Neuroscientists, with their love for precise language, might call it the left hemisphere interpreter. It is a quiet, diligent scribe sitting in a cozy, lamplit room in the left side of your brain. Its job is never-ending. It receives a constant, chaotic stream of information, a flicker of light, a muffled sound, a twinge of muscle fatigue, a half-formed memory, a sudden surge of chemicals we call emotion. Most of this information is fragmented, contradictory, and nonsensical. It is like being handed a million scraps of paper from 1,000 different books in a dozen different languages, and being told to make a single, coherent story out of them. And the storyteller is brilliant at its job. It cannot abide chaos. It cannot tolerate a gap in the plot. So it weaves. It connects. It invents. It smooths over the rough edges and fills in the blanks with the most plausible, sensible narrative it can create. It is the master of what we might call post hoc reasoning, reasoning after the fact. The most famous experiments that revealed this clever storyteller were conducted on what are known as split-brain patients. These are individuals who, often to treat severe epilepsy, had the bundle of nerves connecting the two hemispheres of their brain surgically severed. This means the left hemisphere, where our storyteller resides, and the right hemisphere, which is more silent, intuitive, and perceptual, can no longer easily communicate. In one experiment, a patient's right hemisphere was shown a picture of a chicken claw. His left hemisphere was shown a picture of a snowy, wintry scene. Then, he was presented with an array of other pictures and asked to choose one that was related to what he had seen. His hands, each controlled by a different hemisphere, went to work. His left hand, from the right hemisphere, pointed to a shovel, a sensible connection to the snowy scene. His right hand, from the left hemisphere, pointed to a chicken, a perfect match for the chicken claw. Then came the crucial question. The researcher asked him, "Why did you choose those?" The patient's left hemisphere, the storyteller, had seen only the chicken. It had no knowledge of the snow scene that had prompted the left hand to choose the shovel. But did it say, "I have no idea why my left hand is pointing to a shovel"? Oh no, that would be a gap in the plot, an inconsistency. The storyteller abhors a vacuum. Without a moment's hesitation, the patient concocted a perfectly reasonable explanation. He said, "Oh, that's easy. The chicken claw goes with the chicken, and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed." He didn't know he was making it up. To him, it felt like the obvious, undeniable truth. The storyteller had taken an unrelated action from another part of the brain and seamlessly, effortlessly, woven it into the central narrative of the self. It created a cause for an effect it didn't understand. And we all do this, all the time, every single day. You snap at your partner over a minor inconvenience. The real reason, buried deep, is a stressful work meeting you had earlier that day. But your storyteller, not having immediate access to that complex chain of stress hormones and latent anxiety, creates a simpler story. It says, "I am angry because they left the dishes in the sink." It feels true. It feels like the complete reason. You choose one jar of jam over the other. The real reason might be a primal, visual attraction to the deeper red color, processed in a part of your brain that has no words. But your storyteller invents a logical reason. "I chose this one because the label looks more artisanal," it says. And you believe it. This is not lying. This is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is the very process that creates the illusion of a unified, consistent self. Without this clever, ceaseless narration, our lives would feel like a random, confusing series of events. We would be a collection of disjointed impulses, a chaotic symphony with no conductor. The storyteller is the conductor. It might not write the music, but it leads the orchestra and tells you the story of the symphony. So, when you lie in bed at night and your mind replays the day, weaving together your actions and your reasons, remember the gentle, diligent scribe at work. It is trying to make sense of you. It is trying to give your life a plot, a character arc, a theme. It is the author of the beautiful, complicated, and sometimes entirely fictional story of your life. And the most wonderful part, the fact that you can even listen to this story and now question the storyteller. Well, that suggests there is something even deeper, a quiet awareness behind the narration, a consciousness that can observe the story being told. But that, perhaps, is a story for another night. For now, it is enough to appreciate the tale, to thank the storyteller for its work, and to rest, knowing that even the contradictions are being woven into a tapestry that is uniquely, comfortingly yours. There is a poem by Robert Frost that has nestled its way into the heart of our culture. You know the one. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and the traveler, after much contemplation, chooses the one less traveled by, and that, he tells us, has made all the difference. It is a beautiful, empowering sentiment. But let us, for a moment, consider the other road, the one he did not take. In the poem, it simply vanishes into the undergrowth. But in our minds, in our lives, that other road does not vanish. It remains. It glows with a soft, persistent, and often more appealing light. It becomes the road paved with regret. Not necessarily the regret of what happened, but the regret of what might have been. This is the psychology of anticipated sadness, and it is a ghost that sits on our shoulder during every significant choice we ever make. Why is it that the rejected option so often gains a mystical allure after we have made our decision? You order the chocolate cake, and as you take the first bite, you find yourself wondering if the cheesecake would have been creamier. You accept a job in one city, and as you unpack your boxes, you can't help but imagine your life in the other city you turned down. You marry the wonderful person you love, and in a quiet moment, your mind might flit to the charming acquaintance from years ago, and a question mark, faint as a whisper, appears. What if? This is not a sign of ingratitude or a character flaw. It is a fundamental feature of how our imagination and our emotions work in tandem. We are time-traveling creatures. We live in the present, but we are constantly projecting ourselves into the future, and we are armed with a powerful, double-edged tool, counterfactual thinking, the ability to imagine counter to fact, to imagine a world that does not exist. This ability is what allows us to plan, to innovate, to hope, but it is also what allows us to regret. Before a decision, we use it to weigh options. After a decision, we use it to second-guess ourselves. The chosen path becomes reality, with all its mundane details and minor imperfections. The rejected path remains in the realm of pure, perfect potential. It is never soiled by the messy reality of execution. It is forever the perfect cheesecake, the thrilling big city life, the flawless alternate relationship. It is a ghost, and like all ghosts, it is immune to the decay of the real world. This is amplified by a psychological principle known as loss aversion. Pioneered by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, loss aversion tells us that the pain of losing something is about twice as powerful, psychologically, as the pleasure of gaining something of equivalent value. When you choose one path, you are, in a very real sense, losing all the others. Your mind, geared to avoid loss, immediately begins to highlight what you are giving up. It's a kind of preemptive mourning for the possibilities that are about to be extinguished. This is anticipated regret. It is the sadness we feel before we even feel it, a shadow of a future emotion cast backward into the present. It is the reason we hesitate, we dawdle, we procrastinate. We are not just choosing the chocolate cake. We are actively, emotionally, experiencing the loss of the cheesecake at the same time. The choice becomes a small tragedy. Now, imagine this on a grand scale. The big decisions, the house, the job, the life partner, are absolutely drenched in this anticipated regret. The weight is immense because the ghost of the road, not taken, is so vivid, so detailed. We imagine ourselves in that other house, hosting perfect dinner parties. We imagine ourselves in that other job, feeling fulfilled and respected. We imagine that other life, full of passion and excitement. And compared to these shimmering fantasies, the reality we have chosen can sometimes feel ordinary. But here is a secret about these ghosts. They are made of the flimsiest material. They are woven from selective memory and imagination. The other job you didn't take would have had its own tedious meetings and difficult colleagues. The other person you didn't marry would have left their socks on the floor and had annoying habits. The other road, had you taken it, would have had its own potholes, its own muddy stretches, its own dead ends. The storyteller in your mind, the one we met in the last chapter, is not just narrating the past. It is also a prolific writer of fiction about the future, and its stories about the roads not taken are bestsellers, because they are edited down to only the most compelling highlights. They are the movie trailers for a film that was never made, all dramatic music and beautiful shots, with all the boring scenes left on the cutting room floor. So what can we do? We cannot stop our minds from time traveling. We cannot shut down our imagination, nor should we want to. The trick is not to fight the ghost, but to recognize it for what it is. A beautiful, sad, fictional story. The next time you feel the pang of anticipated regret, as you hover between two choices, I want you to acknowledge the other road. Give a nod. Thank your imagination for showing you such a detailed, wonderful possibility. And then, gently, remind yourself that it is a phantom. The road you are on, the one you are about to choose, is the only one that will ever be real. Its bumps and its curves, its boring straightaways and its surprising vistas are what will make up the authentic texture of your life. The poet may have taken a road less traveled, but he could only ever take one road. The other remained in the yellow wood, a beautiful idea, and that is all it ever was. An idea. Your life, your real, messy, wonderful life, is happening on the path you are actually walking. And that is the only one that can ever truly make all the difference. Now that we have met the storyteller, let us wander into another quiet, hidden room of the mind. A room where numbers are not just numbers, but silent anchors, sinking into the deep seabed of our perception, holding our judgments fast in place, no matter how hard we might try to drift away. This is the anchored mind, and the first number you hear, in any situation, is a prison you cannot see. Imagine you are at a silent auction. You walk past a lovely, old vase. It has a certain charm. You look at the bid sheet. The starting bid, the suggested opening offer, is set at $50. That number, 50, now sits in your mind. It becomes a reference point. You might think, well, is it worth more than 50? Perhaps 60? Maybe 70? Your entire valuation of this vase is now dancing around that initial, arbitrary figure. It has anchored you. Now, imagine the same vase in the same room, but on this bid sheet, the starting bid is set at $200. Suddenly, your mental calculus shifts. 200? That seems high, but perhaps 180 or 150. The vase hasn't changed. Its intrinsic worth is the same, but your perception of its value has been dramatically altered by that first, powerful number. This is the anchoring effect, one of the most robust and pervasive of all our cognitive biases. It works because our brains, for all their brilliance, are not absolute measuring devices. They are comparative machines. We understand things in relation to other things. Is this room warm or cold? Well, what was the temperature of the room you were just in? Is this person tall? Well, how tall are the people standing next to them? In a world of uncertainty, where we often don't know the true value of something, we desperately cling to the first piece of information we get, even if it is completely irrelevant. That initial anchor biases all our subsequent adjustments. We make tiny, insufficient tugs away from the anchor, but we rarely break free. This goes far beyond auctions. It is at work when you negotiate the price of a car. The salesperson starts with a high number, anchoring the entire negotiation upward. It is at work when you see the original price slashed through on a website with the sale price next to it. That original price, whether it was ever real or not, makes the sale price seem like a fantastic deal. It is the reason that expensive bottles of wine on a menu make the moderately priced bottles seem reasonable. The anchor sets the scale. Some of the most striking demonstrations of anchoring come from studies with judges. Researchers gave a group of experienced judges a case file about a shoplifting offense. Then, they had them roll a pair of dice that were loaded to always show either a 3 or a 9. After rolling the dice, the judges were asked a simple question. Would you sentence this woman to a prison term greater or lesser in months than the number you just rolled? Then, they had to specify the exact sentence. Can you guess what happened? The judges, experienced, professional, and dedicated to impartiality, were profoundly influenced by the roll of the dice. The judges who rolled a 9 proposed an average sentence of 8 months. The judges who rolled a 3 proposed an average sentence of 5 months. A completely random, irrelevant number, a product of chance, altered the course of a hypothetical woman's life in the minds of these experts. The anchor had dropped, and their judgment was moored to it. This is not because judges are foolish. It is because all human minds are built this way. When faced with a difficult decision, and assigning a sentence is certainly that, the mind, your storyteller, grabs onto the first available number and uses it as a starting point for its calculations. It's a mental shortcut, a heuristic. It saves energy, but it can lead us astray in the most profound ways. Think about your own life. The salary you ask for in a new job is often anchored by your previous salary. Your satisfaction with the size of your home is anchored by the size of the home you grew up in. Your feeling about the temperature of a swimming pool is anchored by the air outside. We are all living in a sea of invisible anchors, dragging behind us, influencing everything from the mundane to the monumental. So what can we do? Becoming aware of the anchor is the first and most powerful step. When you find yourself making a numerical judgment about price, about time, about value, pause and ask yourself, what was the first number I heard here? Is it relevant? Or is it an anchor trying to bias me? Simply asking the question can create a little space, a little freedom. It allows you to consciously adjust, to pull harder on the chain, to see if you can find a more independent valuation. But perhaps, for tonight, we don't need to fight it. Perhaps we can simply observe it with a sense of wonder. Our minds, seeking to navigate a complex world, use these simple rules of thumb. They are imperfect, but they are efficient. The anchored mind is not a broken mind. It is a practical mind, trying to make do with limited time and information. So as you drift towards sleep, feel the gentle weight of these anchors. They are not chains. They are simply part of the ballast that keeps your ship steady in the water. Acknowledge them, thank them for their service, and then let them go, sinking down into the dark, quiet depths of the ocean, leaving you floating freely on the surface, ready to drift wherever the current of your dreams may take you. Now let us consider a different kind of trap, one not built on invisible anchors or the whispers of storyteller, but on a much more emotional, much more stubborn foundation, our past investments. This is the siren song of the sunk cost, and it is a melody that has led many a ship onto the rocks. Picture this. You have been waiting in a long, slow-moving line for a movie. You have been waiting for 45 minutes. Your feet ache a little. The night is getting cooler. You are no longer even sure you want to see this film. The initial excitement has worn off, replaced by a dull fatigue. But you stay. You stay because you think, I've already waited 45 minutes. If I leave now, that time will have been wasted. This is the sunk cost fallacy in its pure, simple form. A sunk cost is a cost that has already been incurred and cannot be recovered. The 45 minutes, the money you spend on a non-refundable ticket, the effort you've already expended, it is gone, irretrievably gone, like water poured onto sand. And yet, we allow these irretrievable investments to dictate our current and future decisions. We throw good time after bad, good money after bad, good energy after bad, because we don't want to feel that the initial investment was a loss. It is an emotional equation, not a logical one. Logically, only the future costs and benefits should matter. The past is already written. The question you should be asking yourself in that movie line is, from this moment forward, will staying in this line bring me more pleasure than leaving and doing something else? The 45 minutes already spent should not factor in. They are gone, but they weigh on us like a ghostly chain. We see this everywhere. You order a large meal at a restaurant and become full halfway through, but you paid for it, so you force yourself to keep eating, making yourself uncomfortable to get your money's worth. The money is already spent. The rational choice is to stop eating when you are full, but the sunk cost of the meal pulls you forward. You continue reading a book you are not enjoying, page after tedious page, because you've already read the first 100 pages. The time spent on those first 100 pages is sunk. It cannot be gotten back, whether you finish the book or not. Yet, we persist, often compounding the initial investment of time with more wasted time. On a much larger scale, this fallacy drives nations to continue fighting wars they cannot win, because so much blood and treasure has already been spent. It drives companies to pour more money into failing projects, because they've already invested so much. It makes people stay in dead-end jobs, unhappy relationships, or futile pursuits because of the years they have already put in. Why? Why are we so beholden to the past? The reasons are deeply woven into our psychology. First, we are loss-averse. As we touched on before, the pain of a loss is psychologically more powerful than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Abandoning a project feels like crystallizing a loss, making it real. By continuing, we keep alive the hope, however faint, that we might yet turn it into a win and avoid that painful feeling of loss altogether. Second, we want to be consistent. We want to see ourselves as people who finish what they start. To give up is to admit failure, to be inconsistent with our initial decision. Our storyteller mind weaves a narrative of perseverance and commitment, and to break that narrative is deeply uncomfortable. It creates cognitive dissonance. Third, there's the powerful force of social validation. We worry about what others will think if we quit. They'll say I wasted all that time. So we continue, not for ourselves, but for an imagined audience, to prove that our initial decision was correct. The sunk cost fallacy is a kind of loyalty to our past selves. It is a refusal to admit that the person we were an hour ago, a year ago, or a decade ago made a mistake or a miscalculation. To cut our losses now would be to betray that past self. So we press on, in a strange act of loyalty, even when it harms our present and future self. The way out of this trap is not easy, but it is simple. It requires a gentle, conscious shift in perspective. It asks us to be brave enough to say, that was then, this is now. It requires us to honor our present and future well-being more than we honor our past investments. The next time you find yourself in a situation like the movie line, pause. Take a breath and ask yourself this one liberating question. If I were to arrive here now, with no time already invested, would I still choose to join this line? If the answer is no, then you have your answer. The past is gone. The 45 minutes are memory. The only thing that is real is the present moment and the choice that lies before you now. Leaving the line is not wasting the 45 minutes. It is freeing the next 45 minutes. It is choosing to stop pouring water into a cup that is already full. This is not about being frivolous or giving up easily. It is about wise stewardship of your most precious resources, your time, your energy, and your joy, here in the present. It is about granting yourself the permission to change your mind, to let the past be the past, and to make every new choice with a clear, unburdened heart. So as you lie here, you can think of any sunk costs in your own life, big or small, that might be quietly influencing you. You don't need to make any dramatic decisions tonight. Just acknowledge them. Thank them for the lessons they taught you. And then, gently, grant yourself the freedom to let them go. The water has already flowed under the bridge. You are here, now, on this bank, free to choose which way to walk next. We have seen how anchors pull us and how sunk costs hold us. But there is another, even more subtle artist at work in the gallery of our mind, the frame. Because the truth is, a choice is never presented in a pure, abstract form. It is always wrapped in context, dressed in language, set against a backdrop. And the frame, it turns out, is the picture. Consider this simple, elegant demonstration. Imagine you're a doctor. A new disease is expected to kill 600 people. You have 2 programs to combat it. Program A will save 200 people. Program B has a 1/3 probability of saving all 600 people and a 2/3 probability of saving no one. Which do you choose? If you're like most people, you probably feel a pull towards Program A. It offers a sure thing. Saving 200 lives for certain feels solid, reliable. Now, let's reframe the exact same problem. The same disease will kill 600 people. You have 2 new programs. Program C will result in 400 people dying. Program D has a 1/3 probability that nobody will die and a 2/3 probability that 600 people will die. Which do you choose now? Suddenly, Program C feels awful. 400 people will die. Sounds like a catastrophe. Your gut might pull you towards the gamble of Program D, hoping for the chance that nobody dies at all. But look closely. Program A and Program C are mathematically identical. Saving 200 people is the same as 400 people dying out of 600. Program B and Program D are also mathematically identical. Yet, they feel completely different. This is the framing effect. It is the psychological phenomenon where the same information, presented in different ways, framed in terms of gains or losses, leads to different decisions. We are not rational calculators. We are emotional beings who use mental shortcuts. And one of the most powerful shortcuts is this. We are risk-averse when a frame emphasizes gains, but we become risk-seeking when a frame emphasizes losses. We will take a sure gain over a gamble, but we will take a gamble to avoid a sure loss. The thought of losing what we have is so painful that we will roll the dice to avoid it, even if the dice are not in our favor. This goes far beyond life-and-death medical scenarios. It is in the supermarket aisle every day. You see a package of ground beef labeled 90% lean. It sounds healthy, positive, good. Now imagine an identical package labeled 10% fat. It sounds greasy, unhealthy, something to avoid. It's the same meat, but the frame, lean versus fat, guides your hand. It is in the weather forecast. There's a 30% chance of rain, feels very different from, there is a 70% chance of sunshine. The data is identical. The frame alters your perception, and thus, your choice to carry an umbrella or plan a picnic. Our storyteller mind is highly susceptible to these frames. It doesn't just receive raw data, it receives a pre-packaged story. The frame sets the stage, the mood, the genre of the decision. A decision framed as an opportunity for growth feels exciting. The exact same decision, framed as a risk of failure, feels terrifying. The frame tells your storyteller what kind of story this is going to be, a comedy or a tragedy, and the storyteller then narrates your decision accordingly. This is why language is so powerful. Politicians don't talk about raising taxes, they talk about investing in our future. Companies don't have failure fees, they have success-based premiums. The words are chosen to trigger a specific frame in your mind, to guide you toward a specific feeling, and thus, a specific choice. So, what are we to do if the very language used to describe our options can warp our reality? The first step, as always, is awareness. When you are faced with a choice, pause and ask, how is this being framed? What is the other way to look at this? Try to strip away the positive or negative language and see the bare, numerical reality underneath. Convert the 90% lean into 10% fat in your mind and see if it feels the same. But on a deeper, more philosophical level, we can learn to see the frames in our own lives. We can notice when we are framing a challenge as a threat or an ending as a failure. We can consciously choose to reframe it. I have to give a speech can be reframed as, I get to share my ideas. I am losing my youth can be reframed as, I am gaining wisdom and experience. The frame is not the reality. It is just the border you put around the picture. And you, the quiet observer behind the storyteller, you have the power to change the frame. You can choose a gilded, ornate frame of fear and limitation, or you can choose a simple, clean frame of curiosity and possibility. The world does not come with a pre-installed frame. The framing is done by culture, by advertisers, by politicians, and most often, by our own habitual storyteller. But tonight, as you drift closer to sleep, you can practice this gentle art. Think of a small worry. Now, imagine putting a different frame around it. See how the picture changes. The content is the same, but the feeling shifts. This is not about naive positivity. It is about recognizing that your perception is a creative act. You are not just looking at the picture. You are in a very real way choosing the frame. And in that choice lies a profound and quiet kind of freedom. We have wandered through the inner landscapes of anchors and frames, of storytellers and sunk costs. But we are not solitary beings making choices in a vacuum. We are social creatures, living in a vast, humming hive of humanity. And this brings us to a gentle, pervasive force that guides our choices as surely as the moon guides the tides. The herd. The quiet, comforting push of the crowd. We like to think of ourselves as independent, as unique individuals with tastes and opinions forged in the private fires of our own consciousness. And to a large extent, this is true. But beneath this feeling of autonomy, there's a deep, ancient, and often unconscious pull to belong, to align, to conform. This is not a weakness. It is a survival mechanism written into our very bones. Imagine our distant ancestors on the savannah. A lone human was a vulnerable creature, but a group of humans, moving and thinking together, was a formidable force. Knowing what the group knew, where to find food, how to avoid predators, was a matter of life and death. The individual who went their own way, who ignored the consensus, often did not live long enough to pass on their genes. Conformity, the tendency to adjust our behavior or thinking to align with a group standard, is part of our evolutionary inheritance. It is the herd's gentle push, keeping us safe within the fold. The most elegant and perhaps unsettling demonstration of this comes from the experiments of Solomon Asch in the 1950s. He would bring a participant into a room, believing they were taking part in a simple vision test. They were seated at a table with several other people who were, unbeknownst to them, actors in on the experiment. The task was absurdly simple. The researcher would hold up a card with a line on it, and then another card with 3 lines of different lengths. The group was asked, one by one, to say which of the 3 lines matched the length of the first. For the first few rounds, the actors gave the correct, obvious answer. But then, they began to conspire. On a critical trial, the actors, one after another, would all confidently give the same wrong answer. The real participant was seated second to last, hearing a chorus of incorrect answers before it was their turn. What did they do? The line was clearly, undeniably, of a different length. And yet, over the course of the experiments, about 75% of participants conformed to the group's clearly incorrect answer at least once. They denied the evidence of their own eyes to go along with the crowd. Afterward, when asked why, most didn't say they actually believed the group was right. They said they didn't want to rock the boat, or appear foolish, or cause a disruption. The social discomfort of dissent was greater than the cognitive discomfort of being wrong. Now, translate this from a 1950s lab to your modern life. You are in a meeting at work, and everyone seems to be agreeing on a strategy that you think is flawed. The herd is moving in one direction. Do you speak up? It takes a certain kind of courage, a willingness to feel the profound loneliness of going against the current. This is the Asch experiment happening in boardrooms every day. This pull shapes our tastes in profound ways. The music we like, the clothes we wear, the slang we use, the political opinions we hold. So much of it is subtly, or not so subtly, influenced by the groups we belong to or aspire to belong to. We laugh louder at a joke if everyone else is laughing. We find a painting more beautiful if it's in a prestigious museum. We rate a product more highly if it already has hundreds of 5-star reviews. This is social proof, a mental shortcut that says, if everyone else is doing it, it must be the right thing to do. It is the engine of trends and fashions. It is also the engine of mob mentality and collective folly. It is a force that can create beautiful communities and terrifying cults. The herd does not care about truth. It cares about cohesion. But again, let us not judge this too harshly. This gentle push is also the source of much of the comfort in our lives. The shared laughter with friends, the feeling of singing in a choir, the solidarity of a community coming together. These are the beautiful, warm aspects of conformity. It is the glue that holds societies together. It creates shared rituals, shared values, a shared sense of reality. Without it, we would be a planet of 7 billion utterly isolated, mutually incomprehensible atoms. The paradox, of course, is that we each contain both the urge to belong and the urge to be unique. We want to fit in, but we also want to stand out. We derive comfort from the herd, but we derive meaning from our individuality. So what is the path? It is not to reject the herd entirely. That is a lonely and impossible task. Nor is it to blindly follow. That is to surrender your one precious life to the whims of the crowd. The path is one of gentle awareness. To notice the pull, to feel that subtle pressure to agree, to go along, to like what others like, and to choose what others choose. And in that moment of noticing, to pause, to ask yourself, is this my authentic preference? Or am I simply feeling the comfort of the herd? There is no right or wrong answer. Sometimes, going with a group is the wisest, kindest, most efficient choice. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to step out of the current and stand on the riverbank, alone for a moment, to see where you truly want to go. As you lie here in the quiet, you can feel this duality within you. The part that seeks the warm, safe, humming center of the group, and the part that is a solitary, silent, observing star. Both are you. Both are valid. The art of a well-lived life is not to eliminate one in favor of the other, but to listen to both, and to choose, moment by moment, when to join the dance, and when to sit it out and simply enjoy the music from a distance. And so, we arrive here at the quiet heart of the forest. We have wandered down many paths together, you and I. We have stood before the towering shelves of endless choice and felt the paradoxical weight of too much freedom. We have peered into the machinery of the mind and seen the readiness potential fire before the conscious decision, blurring the line between the captain and the ship. We have met the diligent storyteller, weaving coherence from chaos, and felt the ghostly allure of the roads not taken. We have felt the invisible drag of anchors, the stubborn grip of sunk costs, the subtle warp of frames, and the gentle, inexorable push of the herd. Each of these, a beautiful, intricate trap, a paradox. We feel like free agents, yet we are swayed by forces we cannot see. We believe we are the authors of our lives, yet we are also reading from script written by a hand that is both ours and not entirely ours. This is the beautiful trap of being human. The central paradox that is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be embraced. To be human is to live in the tension between the feeling of agency and the fact of influence, between the individual and the collective, between the conscious narrator and the unconscious author. If we lean too far one way, we become arrogant, believing we are in complete control, blind to the biases and social forces that shape us. If we lean too far the other, we become passive, feeling like mere puppets on the strings of biology and culture, surrendering our responsibility. But there is a middle path, a path of peaceful observation. It is the understanding that you are both the weaver and the tapestry, the dreamer and the dream. You are the silent awareness that can observe the storyteller, notice the anchor, feel the pull of the herd, and still, in that very noticing, exercise a profound kind of freedom. The freedom is not in controlling every thought and every bias. That is an impossible task. The freedom is in the gentle, compassionate awareness of them. It is in the space between the stimulus and your response. In that space, no matter how brief, lies your power to choose how you relate to the machinery of your own mind. You are not a flawed creature, trapped by paradox. You are a miracle of complexity, a living conversation between 1,000 competing voices, and the silent, spacious awareness that holds them all. The trap is not a cage. It is the very structure of your being, and it is beautiful. So, as you lie here now, at the end of our long journey, you can let it all go. The choices, the biases, the stories. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to figure it out. You can simply rest in the elegant, humbling truth of it all. You are a paradox, and that is perfectly, wonderfully okay. Let the feeling of not needing to know be the softest blanket that carries you into sleep. The choices have been made for now. The jams are all back on their shelves. The roads have faded into the twilight. The anchors have dissolved into sand. The storyteller, at long last, is setting down its pen. The herd is sleeping. There is nothing more to decide, nothing more to analyze. All the paradoxes can simply be unresolved, like two chords held in a harmony that doesn't need to resolve. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the bed, a body that makes choices and is chosen for, that tells stories and is a story itself. There is no separation. There's only this single, breathing, complex whole. You are not a ghost in a machine. You are the entire, mysterious, wonderful system, and it is designed, above all, for rest. So let the mind soften. Let the thoughts drift like leaves on a slow-moving river. There is no need to grasp them. There is no need to choose. You can release the wheel. The ship knows how to drift on its own. The deep, ancient parts of you that beat your heart and breathe your lungs are in charge now. They require no conscious choice from you. They simply are, and you can simply be with them. In this space, there is no paradox. There is only presence. There is only the gentle rhythm of the breath, the soft darkness behind the eyelids, the quiet acceptance of everything exactly as it is. This is the peace that comes not from having all the answers, but from no longer needing the questions. Let sleep come now, not as an escape, but as a returning home to the deepest, most silent, and most knowing part of yourself. The part that was never trapped, but was always perfectly free.